Hey there, everybody. Dr. Mark here, back with another live office hours. I'm excited to dive in today. You might have noticed that I'm in a slightly different environment here. I'm actually got some office space, if you see behind me, in a gym called Rise Strength Lab here in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I'm coming to you live from there today because I want to talk to you about a few different things. Namely, as the name, the theme of the video today was how to assess clients' progress, nutrition clients' progress, and make sure that they're making progress. So we're going to talk all about that and how to make sure your clients, specifically clients with weight loss or fat loss goals, are moving in the right direction. Plus, we're going to talk about moving in the right direction here. Some cool new tools that I have access to slash purchased that I'm going to use to assess that in my own practice. It's something I've used in the past and kind of go from there. If you're tuning in live, I would love to make this as interactive as possible. So, drop your name, where you're calling in from, tuning in from in the chat. And if you have any questions about anything that we discussed today, by all means, go for it. I also have a special surprise today outside of being in a new environment, a new initiative that I think you guys are all going to find particularly interesting that we're going to start up in the next few weeks. Actually, let's get it out there. So, some of the big reasons being, I'm in office space now in a gym, beautiful facility. I might have to give you guys a bit of a tour at some point here. But everything I've always done is completely online, but I've also always had strong partnerships with fitness centers and gyms, CrossFit boxes, strength and conditioning facilities. I'm excited to be here at Rise for the next little bit. And one thing that we are going to be doing is putting on an 8-week transformation challenge starting probably the third week of September, ironing out all the details. One thing that I've done in the past with these type of challenges is use something called the InBody scanner, which is over there in the corner. Really, really cool piece of technology. And that's why I want to talk about like how to make sure your clients are moving in the right direction today, how to assess their progress, because this is something I've used in the past in these challenges, and clients love it. I love it. I got like a stack of the actual readouts that I've done for myself in the past years ago, those type of things, as well as redoing now and working into the challenge because obviously, even if you have weight loss goals, the scale only tells you so much, right? Your scale is just your actual weight on that day. It doesn't give us the best indication if your body composition is changing or changes in fat mass, retention of lean body mass, or even gaining muscle and how that impacts things. So it's not always the best indicator of progress. It's the most accessible one, and I do use it, and I think most clients should use it, get more comfortable with the data and use it as a proxy for the data. But if we have access to other tools that give us a sense of what are some of the other changes going on, it's much more worthwhile. So that's what we're going to talk about today and dive into that. So if you guys are tuning in, if you have any questions, drop them in the chat. If you're watching the replay, by all means, comment on the video as well, and I'll get back to it. What I am thinking of doing is with this transformation challenge and one of the and that type of stuff. So we're going to put together the transformation challenge and document what's going on behind the scenes so you can run your own one as well. If you're game to follow along with that, you are interested in it, you want to learn a little bit more, make sure you drop the words challenge in the comments. And I'll make sure that I'm going to do a good job putting it together, but I'll make sure I put it together and make sure to showcase it for you guys so that you can learn a little bit more about it. Without further ado, though, how do we assess that clients are moving in the right direction? I would say I've worked with pretty close to 2,000 nutrition clients. So many of them have weight loss goals. You can't avoid this stuff. People are going to want to lose weight, and nutrition obviously is one of the best ways to manage that and achieve that goal. So you're going to have to be able to help people lose weight. Specifically fat mass, no one wants to just become a smaller version of themselves. But within that, within that weight loss, we want to make sure that most of it is going to be fat. And if we're just using the scale to assess if you're moving in the right direction, it doesn't always give us the best indication, right? changes in the scale on a day-to-day basis are going to be much more influenced by our water levels than they are actual changes in physical tissue. When you see changes over the course of weeks and months, that's going to be physical tissue. But on a day-to-day basis, that's much more influenced by, did you eat a saltier meal than normal? Did you train really hard and maybe there's a bit more water retention due to some inflammation and that kind of stuff? One of the best things you can do, and I'm not discouraging anyone from using the scale in their coaching or weighing yourself more frequently, because it's one of the best things you can do. But you just do it under normal conditions, and ideally take at least two to three measurements throughout the week at the same time under similar conditions, and take the average of that so you can assess how things are looking on a week-to-week basis. And that'll give you a better idea if things are changing, not just within the scale weight number, but also body composition wise as well. It's one of the most important things you can do is do things repeatedly, but then also get the sense of trends and averages and then kind of go from there. That's how, I would encourage you to use the scale. Now, there's other things you can do to assess body composition. I'm not sure if you guys have ever had your body fat tested, right? If you think about your body composition, when I say body composition, you're made up of two main parts, right? You have your lean body mass, which is going to be all of your muscle, skeletal muscle, but also the muscle within our organs, the stuff that, helps us live, but bone and water as well. You're made up of around 60 to 65% water. So there's quite a bit of water, and that's all of your lean body mass. There's also going to be your fat mass. If we put you in two compartments or two things that you're made of, lean body mass and fat mass. When you're changing the actual number on the scale over the longer periods of time, there's going to be changes in that lean body mass and fat mass. And that's ideally what people want to do when they lose weight. A lot of negative, health conditions and that type of stuff are because of an accumulation of too much body fat, right? I would say unnecessary body fat. There's going to be a level of body fat that we need. And it's not that gaining weight or gaining fat is bad, but in some cases when it's excessive and not necessary, that's where some negative, health issues arise. And when most people want to lose weight, they want to, both for health reasons and aesthetics, they typically want to not lose muscle, right? They want to maintain the muscle that they do have. And that's, as you lose weight, it's never a perfect ratio, but there's going to be some ratio between fat mass and lean body mass. And if we do things correctly, meaning we're doing things at a slower, more acceptable rate, we're eating enough protein, we're doing some resistance training, you're going to change that number to closer to 3 to 1 as opposed to equal, right? 3 pounds of fat to 1 pound of muscle. Now getting a better sense of what's changing within those ratios is helpful as a coach, because it can help you guide process. Is it too fast? Is it too low? Are you retaining as much muscle as you could be? What are some of those changes, and how do we move towards normal? Typically in gym settings, or even as a coach, if you wanted to assess body fat levels, one way of doing that would be through calipers and skin fold testing, right? You actually take a pinch of skin on different areas of your body. There's different points of the tests. The more points you do, the more accurate you can get in terms of overall body fat that you have. But yeah, you take the fold of skin, measure it in millimeters. That all adds together for a total body fat percentage, right? You assess things by actually physically measuring it. To get an accurate measure of that stuff, you really need to be a trained individual. They say upwards of you don't really get accurate until you've done 5,000 measurements. So a lot of people don't have access to that stuff, right? It's tough to do. You could also, if you have access to a research center or a university or a medical facility that has access to something like a DEXA scan, you could get a better sense of through X-ray what your body's made of, how much lean body mass, where is it, and how much fat mass. Typically, those are things that people didn't have a lot of access to, which is why I'm so big on some of these scanning technologies that are accessible. If you guys have never used something like the InBody scan, it's essentially a scale that has electrodes in it. It has those handles that you're seeing. So you get on the scale, You put your feet on the electrodes. You also put your hands on the electrodes, and it sends, a low energy electrical current through your body. And since you're holding onto it and your feet are doing it, like the current circulates and it'll assess differences in the actual density of like tissue, right? So it knows how much water and lean body mass there is and how much through like this actual like impedance is what it's called in the actual current, and how much fat mass you have as well. And it can give you a readout. What I love about the body scan is that like it's attached to these like really, really cool and clever printouts that you can get through time. I just recently got a brand new unit that I'm going to be using. So I don't have all of the repeated measurements through time, but I have done this in the past where I have like a whole rack load of them. What it looks like, rack load, it's a scientific term. What it looks like at the bottom is that like once you do like repeated measurements, you start to see trend lines between your total body weight, skeletal muscle mass, which is obviously going to be important for us, training hard and trying to retain the muscle that we already do have as we change our body composition, and percent body fat. So we can see changes with that through time, which is super, super cool. What's also cool about this is that like you take your height and your weight and you start to this for me is like from 4 years ago, and then you start to look at how it would compare to, if you guys have never picked this up about me, I'm 5'8", currently around like 185 pounds, but it compares your height weight to like a control of where like someone should be typically, and then gives you a sense of like how you compare to the average. What I love about this, like this is called the muscle fat analysis here. What it does is like compares your weight to where you are compared to the control, the skeletal muscle mass, and all these scales here are weighted somewhat differently, so you can get a sense of like the trends. If you have this like D shape between weight, skeletal muscle mass, and body fat mass, it means you have like optimized body composition. If it's like equal, it means like everything's like in proportion. And if you have like a C shape like this, it means your weight and body fat mass are a lot higher than your skeletal muscle mass and out of proportion. This is the type of stuff that I love using as a coach because you can do repeated measurements under similar conditions. The unit itself, like BIA, you guys probably have known, like you've seen home scales like that, bathroom scales with those things. This has 6 electrodes in it, so it's a bit more accurate to begin with than those scales. It's more expensive as well, but it's priced so that it's accessible. You can buy one. Maybe your gym has one. Maybe you have a gym around you that has them. It's really good for repeated measurements, typically around, I would say like, once a month or once a quarter, to get a sense of how things are changing for you long term, which is really, really helpful, right? Like that's what you want to be doing and assessing. That's the biggest thing, being like, how are things changing long term, not just with the scale or how you're looking, but how you're actually changing through skeletal muscle mass and fat mass. And that's how we optimize our body composition. Would be the biggest thing. The scale is great, and I would still encourage everyone to weigh themselves almost daily, if not 3 times per week, and get a sense of the trends, because more data points is better. And just the psychology around self-monitoring is important, right? Like if you're more tuned into the things that you need to be looking at, you're more likely to stick with your plan, make better decisions and that kind of stuff. Still use the scale and be smart about it, but using these type of measurements is like completely lights out. I love it. It's like one of the best things you can do. It's not about quote unquote, like people are going to watch this video and be like, well, how accurate is it in measuring, body fat? To me, as a coach, I'm less worried about something being like true as I am using a tool to bring the best outcomes out of someone and to get the best results and to assess how things are moving. To me, if this says, 18% body fat, I don't really care, is that like quote unquote like true as much as it is like how does that compare through time, and am I moving in the right direction? And that's what tools like this and even measurements and like the circumference measurements and stuff are helpful to do, because then you can get a sense of that. That would be another one, right? We have like caliper and skin folds. We could do measurements as well. That could give you a sense of how things are changing muscle wise too. Like if your measurements are increasing in some areas, be it like your chest, upper arm, like that could be, an indication that things are moving in the right direction. And if you're changing, in terms of like hips, belly button measurement, getting leaner there where we typically start to gain fat, could be an indication that you're moving in the right direction. But a tool like this is super, super helpful for all those things. If you're watching the video, love it if you hit that like button, support the channel. If you found this stuff interesting and you want more information on how to use tools like this, and you want to learn more about if you want to learn more about the transformation challenge we're putting on, and maybe how you could put on your own and do similar things, let me know by writing the words challenge in the comments, and I will do a great job of documenting and putting it all together so you can run one of your own. Hope that makes sense. That's it for me today. Thanks for tuning in to another live, guys, and have a good one. Bye.